The Mill on the Floss by Goerge Eliot. The Mill on the Floss opens with the animated narrator dreaming of dark oatmeal as she or he knew it years ago. At this time, Mr. Tulliver, owner of the mill and his farm, has decided to send his son Tom away to school so that he can become something more than a similar and farmer. When Tom gets for the summer, he learns that his younger sister Maggie forgot to feed his rabbits and they have all died. So he is furious with her. Maggie is a very bright girl with a good intention and a strong desire to please her brother. So this devastates her, as will happen frequently throughout their lives. Tom coldly holds her carelessness against her for the little while before forgiving her. There they find that Mr. Trevor recognizes only Maggie and a bailiff has come to sell off all their household goods and furniture, which Mr. Tulliver had used as a security against one of his loans. Mr. Tulliver turns to her sister Mr. Fallet, Dean and Clyde for help, but they are more interested in making their moral superiority known, and they only buy the goods that by world won't anyway. Tom goes to his uncle Dean for advice on starting out in business so that he can won anyway. Tom goes to his uncle Dean for advice on starting out in business to say that he can help his family. Mr. Dean is somewhat discouraging, but he eventually finds Tom a starting position at Guess to CO. Mr. Dean's employer and sets him up with lessons in bookkeeping. Mr. Tulliver goes to see Mr. Wickham to try to discourage him from buying the mill when it comes up at auction, but she inadvertently convinces him to do just that. Mr. Tulliver has been slowly absorbing, and when they all tell him that Mr. Wickham now owns the mill and is willing to keep him on as manager, he agrees to do, even though this defines the idea of working under Mr. Wickham, since he believes he wants it suit his wife and he doesn't want to make his family have to move. Mr. Tulliver only focus now is on saving enough money to repay all of his remaining outstanding debts. Tom and Mr. Tulliver agree this is a honorable thing to do, so Tom gives all of his earnings from his new job to things cows, and Mr. Tulliver does everything she can to economize both chicken, gives Maggie and fill up books of a gift, among which a spiritual treatise which we recommend self-recognition of the faith of faith. Maggie becomes convinced this is the only way she will be happy, but she goes to it with a egotistical zeal which is against the truth of the renunciation. Both Jacob offers Tom an every same opportunity that he takes with the help of Mr. and Mr. Gray, and he managed to quickly multiply his savings. Meanwhile, Philip Wickham meets Maggie on one of her walks and flirts with her to meet him regular secret. She eventually agrees and they do so for almost a year. Philip finally tells Maggie that he is in love with her, and she tells him that she can't imagine loving anyone more than she does him, but she could never marry him and risks hurting her father and brother so deeply. Tom figures out that Maggie has been meeting Philip and tells her that if she ever sees or communicates with Philip again without Tom's permission, he will tell their father all about it, which probably causes him to lose his sanity again. She accepts his theme and Tom follows her to her next meeting with Philip. Tom is very cruel to him, and Maggie tells Philip she must end their friendship. Tom begins to earn enough money with his ever investments to pay back all of Mr. Truffle's debt. Mr. Truffle is joyous and decided to quit working for Mr. Wickham. But when he runs into him and tells him this, his anger gets the best of him and he ends up working Mr. Wickham with a horsewhip. This brings on stroke of some sort for Mr. Tulliver, and he did soon after telling Tom that he should work to buy the mill back, and he should never forgive the Wickhams. 2 years later, Maggie returns to State Oats to stay with her cousin Lucy Dean after having worked at a school since her father's death. When Maggie learns of Lucy's friendship with Philip Wickham, she tells Lucy about her prior forbidden relationship with him. Lucy begins to seek ways to get the pair together. Maggie meets Stephen Gates, who has been courting Lucy and immediately is very attracted to him and he to her, though they both try to ignore their feelings. Eventually, they are overwhelmed by them, and so Maggie goes to visit her aunt Moss to get away from a little. Stephen comes to her tree and tells her that he loves and that they have to be together. To Maggie instead she insists that she could never be happy with him because of the guilt she would feel about Lucy and Philip. When Maggie returns to Stan or Lucy is trying to solidify the relationship between Maggie and Philip, arranges for the to be alone on a boat ride. Philip throws in defense because he has realized Maggie and Stephen have feelings for one another, so he arranges to Maggie being alone in the boat together. Stephen convinces Maggie to alone with him, so they leave to a round for the Steve seems to work. The next morning, however, when the dog Maggie realizes she can allow herself to get her happiness out of Philip and Lucy hurt. So she tells Stephen he can marry him after all and head back to City Oaks. When Maggie returns to Oz 5 days later, everyone believes the word of her, including Tom, who refuses to offer her a home with him. Mr. Tulliver supports her though, and together they lot of childhood friend Bob Jacken. Letter comes from Stephen to his father, absolving Maggie to good, but the damage to her reputation has been done. The town's clergyman, Dr. Ken, tries to help her and gives her a job as governess to his children. But when rumors start to wit about the two of them, he tells her it would be best if they move another town altogether. Lucy, who has been amazing the shock of Maggie and Stephen running off together, sneaks out one night to visit Maggie and tells her that once she is well again, she will come see her more often. Maggie gets two letters, one from Philip telling her he doesn't blame her and wishes her to feel no guilt for his sake, and one from Stephen pleading with her to marry him. She resolves to turn him down for good. She realizes the house is flooding, and after walking Bob and his family gets into a boat to get to their court Millie. Mr. Tulliver is traveling out of town, but Tom is there and gets into the boat with her. They have a moment of unspoken resolution, but a large fish of the devils comes right to their fight and drowns them. Everyone else survives the flood, and the siblings are buried next to one another.